Welcome to Distillery Labs Whiskey Talks. Whiskey Talks is a monthly webinar on featuring the best of the local entrepreneurs and startups here. Today, I'm pleased to have Keith Heyer and Adi Banti from Source to Table. And we're also joined with Louis John Slagle from Slagle Family Farm, as well as Megan Brignadello from OSF Innovation. So welcome, Keith and Adi. Do you want to start off and share what you guys are doing with Source to Table?
Sure. And Andrew, do you want us to go ahead and just walk through that, just a little bit of our intro slide for today's themes?
Yeah, so perhaps maybe just have a quick introduction with everyone, and then we can go into those slides.
Okay. Hey, great. So, hello, my name's Keith Heyer. I am with Source to Table. We are a new business startup. We formed and we launched back in October of 2019. We are able to provide farm-raised meats and ship them directly to our customers' homes nationwide. And it's something that we've been able to partner with Slagle Family Farm and other farmers to do so. And the timing worked out well because we were able to respond to some of the needs of our customer base and to our farmers through COVID. So, it's fun to see the experiences and to ride a bit of that roller coaster as well. So over to you, Adi? Oh, hey, Adi, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I think I got muted as soon as I started talking. I'm also with Source to Table. We're doing some super exciting stuff. We started about a year ago, last October. And then Louis John, we partnered with Slagle Family Farms and some other farms. And I think where you can really see the value of what we do and our startup is during the COVID pandemic, what we were able to provide for our customers as well as our farmers. And I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more about that as we go.
I'm Louis John Slagle with Slagle Family Farm. So just joining in on the conversation a little bit, share our experience in working with Source to Table. We are fifth generation farmers here in Central Illinois, just an hour east of Peoria. We raise livestock, run our own USDA processing facility. So really take everything from raising feed for the livestock, producing livestock, slaughter, processing, packaging, and distribution of our product feed raised.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction. So I'd love to learn more a little bit about Source to Table and really the connection, Keith and Adi. How did you two meet? What's your history?
All right. So by coincidence, we ended up meeting through my daughter. So a shared acquaintance is my daughter. Adi was working with her on another one of his businesses he was starting. He's a serial entrepreneur, and I started to interact with him. And by coincidence, I had called him and asked him some questions about something with my son. And I just mentioned an idea that I was trying to sort out how to work through, and caught his attention. We got excited, and we just decided it was something that we wanted to move forward on. And we had some research done for this business through the summer, and we started to list out some of the farmers that we wanted to connect with. And by coincidence, Slagle Family Farm was on that list. And the first thing I told myself is, no way. Slagle Family Farm, like they're already very successful. They have a huge restaurant business following. They have their own processing facility. And Adi was able to reach out to Louis John and connect by phone, and we were able to meet a few times. And we found that there were some things that we could work on together that made sense for Slagle Family Farm, and helped get our business in place and to get us started. So that's really where we got our beginning.
It was a really interesting meeting. He called me about tutoring his son in some computer stuff, and then it turned into a conversation about how to make getting meat directly to the consumers easier and getting higher profits for their farmers by doing direct retail sales. That's kind of how that went. Immediately that night, we met at like 9 p.m. at a Starbucks, like 30 minutes before it was going to close. And from there, we decided to, move forward with this. And a funny story with Slagle Family Farms and Louis John, I'm not sure if you remember this or not. The first time I called Louis John, he was just like, absolutely not. This is not going to work out. The shipping is going to be horrible. It's going to be too expensive. Just no. And then eventually, we kind of crafted our business model a little bit around some suggestions from Louis John, and thank you for that. So we kept conversing back and forth, like 3-4 days, finally got a meeting, and that's how we got started.
The
So
stars
just-
really aligned for you guys.
So just to clarify, Adi, but Slagle Family Farm has already been exploring going direct to consumer, and in terms of timing, was that, and that's where kind of you guys intersected.
I think that's more of a question for Louis John. I know they were doing some orders online, but it wasn't like fully digital. So I think that's a question I'm going to pass along to you, Louis John.
Sure. So as Keith mentioned, we do have a pretty large customer base in the restaurant industry. That's kind of our main focus at this point. Was working with chefs, namely Chicagoland area, St. Louis, some in Champaign, Springfield as well. And as we continued to sell more retail or wholesale product to restaurants, we had more and more outreach from prospects for retail. So we were doing a little bit of retail product, kind of through, I guess, using some restaurants in Chicago as a drop-off point. People could order, we would drop it off at a restaurant in Chicago, they'd pick it up there, we'd run their credit card. Worked, it obviously was not as, seamless. There was more logistics, more time on the phone, emails back and forth, that sort of thing. So we did have demand for our product in the retail setting and had been getting calls, fielding calls from Texas, New York, different places, Florida, where people came to Chicago, enjoyed our product, wanted it for home cooking. And at that point, we more or less just said, sorry, we're not, doing home shipping at this point. So something we had looked into a little bit. I know whenever Adi and I talked the first time, he's kind of right. I just said, well, it costs too much to ship product. It's not real cost effective. So, it has been an interesting experience just working all of us together on it and trying to work through some of the challenges, I guess you would say, with getting that into place.
And so this really brings into question the broader food supply chain and the agility and resiliency of that. And so maybe Keith, that's a good time to start sharing your slide.
All right, so let's hit share. All right, and I'm going to put this in a project mode. Just let me know when you fully see it.
You're good.
Okay, so I'll move our images. So again, we gave a little bit of an intro to Source to Table, but I will walk through that. Again, we are online. It's essentially a retail offering for meat directly from farmers, and we do home shipments through FedEx or courier service, and really are offering a high-end experience with, high-end products as well. And we want the opportunity for our customers to meet farmers. So if we look at, some of the themes that I wanted to make sure that we focus on here, I want us to spend some time on what this means, like from a broader industry perspective, what things mean for producers. And I just popped in this little article, how America's food giants swallowed family farms. And as a farm kid myself, this is a real issue. Agriculture, livestock, grain crops as well, they can be very cyclical, and those cycles up and down can totally wipe out your, everyday family farmer. And eventually, the profitability is picked up, and the risk management is picked up by these giants that really start to take the business. And if farmers want to remain independent, they have to find ways to do some things differently, unless they have a lot of capital at their disposal. And then when you start to think about passing that on within your generations, it's difficult to do so. So, you know, the example here is really Louis John Slagle. He found a way to do things differently, and it's really finding a way to really have from farm to table, getting to your customers. And kind of the rule of thumb, and Louis John, I don't know, we won't walk through profitability, but I've heard other farmers state that, you know, if you're running just a livestock lot of cattle, you know, you might make $100 a head, you know, start to finish on an animal. Whereas, you know, if you can find a way to sell direct to your consumers, you can, you know, really clear much, much more than that. But it's not easy. It's a totally different way of operating versus what our farmers grew up doing. I mean, we grew up raising hogs and cattle and grain crops, and to imagine trying to take that direct to a consumer, I can't even imagine it. My dad still raises cattle. There's no way he's selling this to an end user. It's a different skill set. Now, one of the ways that Louis John was able to do this is address some of the big constraint points in the industry is processing. And Louis John has the Slagle family meats, and they run their own USDA inspected processing facility where they're able to supply reliably, you know, both from a quality perspective and a supply perspective to their restaurants and butcher shops, you know, to their wholesale market that they have. It also puts them in a good position if they want to be able to provide retail. They can do the packaging right in-house and ship from right from in-house as well. Whereas some of our smaller farmers have to depend on other processors in order to get this done. So now, from a perspective of food supply resiliency, the other themes I want to hit is this is what's impacting today's consumers as well. You know, recalls of products. And you see some of these recalls. I mean, look how much pork is getting recalled in some of these areas. This is when you have mega producers who are not able to track back effectively where their product is coming from. And suddenly you can get, you know, 500,000 pounds of product that have to get recalled because you're not sure where it's coming from or what's getting into someone's hands. You know, that kind of is a little bit of the downside of a centralized food supply network. And of course, through COVID, there were a lot of farmers who had to start euthanizing animals because they could not find an outlet for their products. It's just like a freight train that continues to get loaded. These hogs continue to grow and to grow and to grow. If you have no place to take them, what do? Well, some people had to euthanize them. It's sad, but that's what ended up taking place. And of course, you have to take into account what the quarantines are doing for our restaurant industry nationwide. Chicago, you know, some of the best restaurants that are out there are starting to go out of business because, you know, a half or quarter capacity or just seating outdoors isn't going to find a way to make their payroll. And they have to find a way they just have to fold. That does have an impact upstream on who's supplying them product. And then of course, we do see trends in online food supply or food delivery, you know, nationwide. And, you know, it seems exciting. It's a trend, but it is a cutthroat business. Just like the other pieces of this business, farming, the margins can be slim. Restaurants are pretty careful with their margins. The food supply, the food delivery industry, you know, there's a reason why, you know, I won't state some of the names, I guess. There's a reason why you see some of them that are supplying direct to home start to go out of business because it is very competitive. And we've started to see some of the competitors spring up out there as well. And it's likely because you had some farmers that were out there that needed to get rid of some products. So you found an outlet by popping in place some type of home delivery option in order to get there. So those are some of the themes that are out here. I think this is where we could start to base some of the dialogue and the discussion.
Thank you, Keith.
Just through the conversations that we've had leading up to this, both you and Adi, it sounds like you've had some background that has allowed for you guys to be agile and resilient during this time. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I think that adds to probably how you guys are resilient in this time in our economy.
Well, I think realistically, if we're talking about the business being resilient, during the times of COVID, it's because we both really believe in the mission and vision of Source to Table. So when we had opportunities along the way, or chances along the way to maybe start using warehouses and start going into some massive operations, we stuck to our gut and we knew what we were doing was the right way to move forward, and it really paid off. So when everything came crashing and burning down, we were still able to supply our customers and sell products from our farmers. So I think staying true to what we started for, and why we were doing this was a big part of it.
Yeah, I also think it is about picking the right partners. So Louis John, he has his own processing facility. They have it's a family business, and it's a small rural area. So they were able to continue to operate safely. They started to work more days of the week than they were before. They started bringing in special crews to start doing the packaging. And with them, we had to start to change even how we did some of our processes. Like poor Rachel, we were killing her the first month or so with all these orders coming in through the COVID quarantine, because we were largely doing some of the stuff like the back office work manually. And we started to realize that wasn't going to work. And we had to start to change how we managed our inventory, how we communicated, just simple tools to collaborate a little bit better. We had to start to make those changes, but I'd say our surge capacity was really picked up by the Slagle team. So they helped us there. And then, we had to make some adjustments as well. We started to realize we were outgunned with all the competitors out there. So we had to start to do some of our own advertising, have some digital marketing expertise who could help support some of the work we were trying to do, to help some things as well. And also, I guess it is a little bit about believing. So like when we were first starting this, it took, let's say, weeks to find the right box supplier. But when Louis John called me one time in May, and they were about 4 days away from being out of boxes because the supplier had COVID and they were shutting the plant down, it was amazing how quickly we could suddenly find another supplier that still met our criteria of what we were looking for. So sometimes a little bit of fire lit under you can make a lot of things happen too.
That's good advice.
Yeah, but I guess I would, on that same note, I mean, Louis John, some of the things that I'll say that Slagle Family Farm and Slagle Family Meats have had to go through this. Can you walk through a bit of like what the change kind of meant to you, like having to just keep your staff running and to work some overtime for a bit? And
yeah, it was a interesting year, as it was for a lot of people. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we came off of the original COVID, I guess if you want to call it, original shutdown, fairly slow, more concerned about running out of work because a lot of our restaurants that we worked with were closed. That didn't last very long until it went the opposite direction, in between spikes and orders through Source to Table, as well as just some grocery store customers that we were with. People realized it didn't just very long for the whole thing to become really realized pretty quick was that the advantage we had being a small business is that we are able to adjust a lot quicker than a big business, so we could make sure we're staying safe, but at the same time increase production by bringing in some extra employees. multiple employees that had worked for us in the past that moved on to something else, that were laid off or not working, came back in, pitched in to help out. My wife, my kid, some of my family members that usually spend more time at the farm found themselves at the butcher shop a lot more. But then also having our own facility and our own equipment for packaging on, we were able to, transition in one day from doing mostly wholesale pack to more retail package format. I guess it just comes back to being having the commitment, and like you said, and having just a better, easier approach to it, just because we're not a massive company that's fully automated. It's a little bit easier to change when you're a little more hands-on in the first place.
That brings up a question just for some of our viewers that maybe don't know the difference between your farm and maybe a large producing farm. Could you maybe share what the difference is and what you do differently?
Yeah. To start with, just if you're talking volume, we do a decent amount of volume as far as we have a consistent availability of product, but just a few numbers to reference maybe. We have 100 sows, which would be the mother pigs. So sows have babies generally once or twice a year. So out of those 100 sows, we're going to have about 1,500 market hogs a year. So if you do the math on that, that means we're going to butcher around 30 pigs a week, give or take. So a 100 sow operation is what we're running. The neighbor right down the road that would have what we would call a commercial operation has 5,000 sows. So that's just a little bit to show you kind of what we're talking about in terms of numbers. Then, I'm not going to sit here to condemn the way anyone else does anything, but our livestock has access to the outside. They're going in and out of the barns. They're not in confinement. No hormones, no continuous antibiotic. Just raising feeding feed that we're raising here on the farm. So really just kind of have the opinion and attitude that we're gonna raise and sell what we want to feed our own families, and really focus on quality over quantity. So and that carries through from the farm through the butcher shop as well. If you look at our slaughter and packaging capacity, we have a lot of flexibility and a decent size facility for a small private facility in central Illinois. But going back to butcher numbers, if we process or cut up 20 to 30 hogs in a day, that's a really good day. We'll do beef one day, pork one, or beef a couple days, pork one day, lamb one day, poultry as well. Compared to a large packer that's going to run close to 20,000 hogs a day, and a big packer. So I'm just trying to throw some numbers out so you have a little bit of an idea of what we're comparing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, huge difference in scale, that's for sure. So, but but it also gives you an opportunity to really focus on what your customers and your restaurant customer base is looking for.
So Keith and Louis John, and that really brings to the front the issues that consumers like us don't really understand, the challenges facing the food supply chain, and really don't understand the process of how the food comes from the farm to the table. What are you guys doing in terms of showcasing the quality of the food that Slagle Family Farm is raising, as well as the overall resiliency of that food supply chain?
So if you take a peek at our website, on every farmer page, we go into deep detail on their history, as well as kind of the processes and routes they take to get the product. And in a lot of our marketing messages, we focus on the fact that, look, you're coming to us not just because it's not the same as a Walmart run, and we make sure our customers know that you're coming for quality meats that are accessible, naturally raised, and we make sure to implement that in all of our messaging. And the way customers know that, especially after they place an order, is if you just take a bite of a ribeye from Slagle Family Farms, you're going to notice a stark difference in taste and quality and everything else. And Andrew, I know you've been slacking on doing that, but you need to make that happen as soon as possible.
Yeah, he does. That's for sure. Well, I also think, we have opportunities to continue to try to really highlight what the differences are and how to try it. But this is definitely a relationship business. I mean, the secret to this business is about getting to know your customers, serving them repeat orders because they like the product, and we need to continue to make them, can't be a one-time only sort of experience. We've got to continue to reach these customers, and part of that is with the product, and I think we've had some success with showing that. Plus, because we're, I'd say, still relatively small, our customer service is done by a very small group of people. We are able to address the questions that they have and hear the feedback that they have, and really, without exception, we get incredible feedback about the quality of the product that we have and how it is different. So now, Andrew, you had mentioned something about the food supply and what things look like that's different. So the centralized food supply, again, it's the food that we all eat from as well. But, it can be large farming operations, large packing processing facilities. It can go to, one or a series of warehouses and, and maybe even a distributor when it eventually gets into the grocery store. So you are adding in, days of time into that supply chain. And it's efficient. So you can't knock the efficiency. I mean, if you want to just model it out on paper, it's very efficient. But we saw through COVID that efficiency isn't everything. We need some agility and some resiliency in this food supply. And that's where using I'll call it the distributed model, the distributed capacity of our farmers, of small local processors, can give a lot more agility through these times when something pinches the supply chain. You don't want to have, COVID and 2 or 3 processing facilities shut down meat supply nationwide. That's crazy. So this is where, the model of working with smaller farmers, processing locally, it's safer because you know where it's coming from, both at the farm, at the processor. You probably actually know the person who is actually cutting it up. Or if you don't, somebody does, and it's literally a name on in the ranks, and people know who it is. So it gives us a little bit more control over that, and I think that's important for our consumers to have that. I mean, I sure hope that we are learning some lessons through COVID, because it's painful when people start to get scared and you run out of food on the shelves.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting through the COVID situation, I guess, was our pricing. Because we're doing everything from start to finish, our pricing stayed the same. Not only the retail level, but at the wholesale level as well. And, as Keith mentioned, the efficiency is there. There's no arguing that. The big companies are more efficient than us. Just from automation and, basically factory line assembly, disassembly, however you want to look at it, but more of an automated system. But the thing that was interesting to me was, we had our customers that are fine with our pricing, even though it is a little bit higher, just because it's consistent and it's always the same. And it didn't take very long when there was a supply chain issue. Wholesale distributing the price for inside round from a large commercial packer went from maybe high $2 to low $3 a pound up to $7 or $8 a pound in a week or whatever it was. And as I mentioned, ours didn't move, And so we have a relationship with a grocery store in Chicago as well that we've been working with for a while. And to them, it was just huge to have same price point every week, and know that the availability is there, know the products, coming in regardless of, I'm not to say that we're, nothing could happen to us. Obviously we get a fire or something too. I'm not saying it's fault free, but just to know that the consistency's there, the product's there, it's not going to be a guessing game what it's going to cost every week. That definitely adds some value to the customer as well, I feel.
Hey, Louis John, that's a really good point. And I think sometimes it comes down to trust as well. I mean, right, we stayed steady on the price because these are our customers, and we're not trying to pull a fast one when all of a sudden everyone gets desperate. It's not the goal. So it's nice to see that. So thanks.
Yeah, you saw a lot of companies taking advantage of the situation during COVID. I saw some stories about Walmart pricing like their average ground beef at like $9 a pound, and these are actual stories that you can look up and read. But we took the opportunity not to take advantage of people. We actually gave back during COVID, and thank you, Louis John, for helping us with this initiative. But we made, I can't even talk today, but we made it a goal to give 1 pound of ground beef or ground pork with every order for the month of April. And that paid off in a big way for a lot of people. Midwest Food Bank agreed to partner with us and accept the meats. And so in the end, we were able to donate around 530, or Keith, what was it, 500 something?
Yeah, with John's help, it was around 500 pounds of beef and pork that we donated when we were done. So yeah. Thank you. That's a good reminder. I kind of forgot about the whole thing. We went through quite a bit.
That's great. So I love that you actually care about listening to your customers. I'm such an experienced type of person, and I think just listening and really understanding who your customers are has probably helped you along the way. It's so important to know your market, especially when you're starting something, but really listening to that feedback of the customers. That's probably been, I feel like just listening to your story has really helped your journey and staying alive this pandemic, this crazy 2020. What are some of the things that maybe you've learned? Do you have any examples of what you've found of things you've had to change or pivot upon besides COVID, but maybe what customers are wanting to hear?
Well, I mean, some of the things, for a while before COVID, we did do a lot of custom work, custom cuts and specialty. Once things got really busy, we needed to give some relief to everybody in this whole situation. So we stopped offering the custom that really took something out of process. So we have some flexibility here or there, but we really try to make sure that we're standardizing on what we're offering. But then we also even, you start to realize what you get your orders on and what you don't. So we had to rationalize even a few of the, we had ribeyes, and at one point in time we had 4 variations of ribeyes from it was bone-in, boneless, 1.5 inch. I mean, there were so many choices, and we needed this legal team to be able to, as they're doing their cutting schedule, to be able to kind of choose a few of the front runners to make that a little bit easier. But once you start to get the feedback from the customers and what they're looking for, that did make the whole process a lot easier to work through. The one thing that we definitely found consistently is when people had the product and experienced it, they really did love it and enjoy it. So it's been super fulfilling. So my wife, Gretchen, she's really our customer service manager, and she takes a lot of questions. And, sometimes there are the crazy requests and the things that, Louis John's team's probably been dealing with for years, and they're like, you guys go ahead and deal with that stuff. But it is super satisfying to get these sort of, requests that are just fun. Like we have a customer in the East Coast. He's in his 90s, and he's ordering for all of his children's families around the country. So he'll order for them and send it to different places, and typically asks us what we recommend to put in things. So the next order, he pops that into his order. And those are fun. We have a customer just in the Bloomington area, which is just east of here, who was always looking for goat and other cuts. And so he continues to try things. And now he's accused us of ruining his palate because they won't order food from the grocery store anymore. And they tried to order some sort of like, I don't know, it was like a meat vegan burger thing. And they spit it out, that they got from the grocery store. They had to kind of go back to their Schlegel choices. And he says that his daughter eats bacon like it's her job. So, those are fun stories to get. That is the fulfilling part of the job. Now, what we need to do is make sure that we're capturing those things and popping them into our messages and our site. We finally got our website updated to a little bit more modern look and feel. And now we can start to take some of the testimonials and the feedback and get that fed into our site so other people get to hear that experience. But I don't know, we get to soak it in ourselves, and that is fun.
Awesome. So Louis John, I'm going to ask you a question, bringing you into this, thinking about just Central Illinois. What do you think, maybe like, what type of conversations do you think we should have with local farmers, maybe to get something like this started, to really bring in the local farmers and really grow this industry? What would be helpful to you?
I guess at this point, what I see as the biggest bottleneck probably is processing capacity. And we do have room or potential.
I might interrupt you for 1 minute.
As far as we did.
I'm going to interrupt you. I feel like your kids just need to come on air. They're so cute trying to come in through the video behind you.
Well, there's 4 of them out there running around, so then you'll be able to hear anything.
They're welcome to come in.
Hey, Megan, it'll be hard to find a batch of kids more picturesque than this crew too. So
they're pretty cute, climbing through the windows or the doors.
And the youngest is 2 weeks old. He won't be walking in yet, but he was just born 2 weeks ago.
Congrats. All right, I'll let you keep talking. I'm sorry.
Sure. But to get back to your question, I guess, as far as meat specific, the biggest, hold up bottleneck is processing capacity. Doing our own processing, we are fairly limited on space. We did reinvest a good amount of money in the last couple of years and actually bought an old milk bottling facility a block away from our current butcher shop, remodeled it all and expanded there just to give us more footprint and more area to work. So we do have room to grow that side of it. Just as if anything else, though, we have to do one step at a time. And the first step is spend the money on the building. The second one is to continue to hire and train additional employees. Our butchering is very much an art or a skill. You can't just hire somebody and expect them to cut meat in a proper way. It's honestly probably a good year learning curve to have any idea really what you're doing. I'd say probably a strong year. So I guess Keith mentioned it earlier in his introduction or his opening, but we do some processing for other farmers as well. So we actually have an additional kind of a brand with where we work with other farmers, where we bring in their product from the Fairbury area. So it's other farmers in the Fairbury area that we would do the processing for them, and that product's marketed under the Fairbury Farms brand. And I do think that has a lot of future growth potential because, as I mentioned earlier, our volume of our farm is only so big. We're not continually expanding our production every week or every month or whatever. But there's no question there's more and more small local farmers, the ones that have not been forced out of business, that are looking for a way to actually make a profit. I've got a good friend of mine in Keith and Audie and those got their team went and got some pictures of with the family and stuff. They're posted on their site as well, but it's a Steidinger family, and they feed cattle. And I mean, we've been friends since going to school together, and frankly, the idea is he's working every day, working hard at it, and especially right now, there's just no profit in it. And it's pretty frustrating to go to work every day and come home. And I say sometimes you have to come home and then pay, then hand somebody else some money because you worked all day, is really about how it goes. And so I guess I feel like, in conversations with him and other local farmers, I see some growth potential there. But there is a lot of moving parts to really make that work too, and to find the customers that want to buy the product and get it to them and so on and so forth. I think we're working in the right direction.
So if I may add to that, I think it really sounds like, Louis John, that the community, not just the urban community, but also the rural communities to really come together more as a whole and really connect with where the food comes from to how it actually ends up on your table. And so that's a really challenging thing, especially nowadays we're seeing the exodus from large cities. I think, that really positions what you're doing with the Slagle Family Farm, as well as Keith and Audie, to, make that more of a cohesive and collaborative community operation. What are your thoughts in terms of that side of things as we move forward in this post-corona time that we're living in?
I guess I do think that there's more opportunity to grow and come together, and whether it's, I guess I would kind of have to foresee it as like this community, small organizations throughout different communities, I guess is the way I would have to say. I could foresee things like that working. Anytime you try to pool something and make it too big, I guess I just would say that's kind of what we have now. And obviously then that continued to expand and weed out all the competition. I mean, honestly, I don't know how much you guys are familiar with the meat packing industry, but there's really 4 meat packing companies in the United States at this point that do probably, I don't know what the number is, 90% maybe of the meat processing. So obviously, I'm not saying that there's not room for growth for us or for a similar business model, but I do see a lot of future in our potential if we continue to sell more product and we have the capacity now to process it, as long as we can control or maintain control and have the same consistency of product, to be able to give some of these other local farmers an opportunity to work with us, whether it's working with us on the farm side of things, helping us supply, or marketing it through their brand and doing the processing for them. We've actually started doing processing for a number of other farms that have started selling to their local communities. I mean, some of them are coming from 1 or 2 hours away. And at this point, they're just, as Keith mentioned earlier too, they're kind of begging for lots, to get livestock in. So they call my sister every couple days and see if anything changed, what else we can do for them. But I guess the other challenge with that is there's no doubt it's expensive and challenging to run a USDA facility. We had probably 3 inspectors on site just today because we have poultry, large animal, and further processing facilities. So I'm not saying they're not doing, they're definitely doing their job. They hold you to a level of, commitment, and there's a lot that goes into that. So it's not something that you can just expand quickly and cheaply by any means. And then the other part that concerns me a little bit with growing to fulfill other farms' brands, if that makes sense. So increasing our processing capacity. a little bit of concern there just from the not necessarily having control or the potential loss of control if we hire a bunch more people and add capacity, and then they decide to, that customer decides to just throw in the towel a month later. Obviously, now we have a lot of overhead that we invested and the work disappeared again. So I'm not saying we're not committed or open to doing that, but we have to be a little bit hesitant on how we continue to move forward.
Yeah, and I also think if you think of the retail business, it is also really cyclical too. Or I don't even say cyclical. That would be almost predictable. It could change rapidly. Volatile maybe is the term in some cases. So, you could have patterns, trends. Sometimes we find they try to order up for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then you've got that dead zone right after New Year's, and you wonder what the heck happened. So that can also be tough if you're trying to build like some consistent capacity and efficiency around that around that retail. That's tough.
I feel like this could be moving back in our conversation a little bit, but if I don't gross anybody out, I might share a quick story. I'll try to make it quick as possible, but you were talking about customers not knowing what happens between the farm and the grocery store shelf, if you will. And I felt like I was somewhat educated in the food processing industry, but I had the opportunity, it's been a couple years now. My wife's from the state of Oregon, and we were out on the West Coast, and just in conversation with a friend, got an invitation to a further food processing facility on the West Coast that produces pre-cooked chicken breasts. So if you are familiar with what I'm talking about, kind of the little perfectly shaped chicken breasts with the grill marks on them that are frozen in the bags at the grocery store. I've eaten them before. I'm not saying any of this to say that it's unhealthy or unsafe or anything like that. I simply think that that we're just, as a customer base, are very uneducated on what happens between point A and point B. So I'll try to make it quick, but I got the tour of this facility. I'd say more as a potential buyer. They didn't ask all the right question there. I guess they potential buyer and showed me around as if I was coming in to place an order. Like I said, they're in Northwest United States. For starters, their chicken supply was, I believe, North Carolina, which I thought was odd because it was about as opposite as you could get across the United States. But we raise and process chickens every week. We butcher fresh chickens every week. Those chickens are usually 3 to 4 pound carcasses at around 8 weeks old, which is, chickens do grow fast. There's no question about that. But we're getting them around 3 to 4 pounds at 8 weeks. These guys said the chickens are still 7 or 8 weeks old, but somehow they're twice as big. They didn't offer any detail on how that happens. But they're butchered, slaughtered, processed, and deboned or made boneless whole breasts out on the East Coast, put in boxes, stuck in the freezer, stuck in the freezer warehouse until they need them on the West Coast. Then they're shipped by a refrigerator truck to the West Coast. They had a giant, basically walk-in freezer warehouse full of frozen chicken breasts. So we got there. That was a starting point at the facility I toured. Then you have these frozen chicken breasts in cases. They brought them out. They said, okay, they just sit here in the warehouse till we're ready to, to further process. Obviously frozen for who knows how long at that point. They bring them in. They run the whole case through a giant microwave. Microwave all of the chicken breasts. Then they run through a metal detector, apparently to look for random metal that was mixed in. So they go through a metal detector, then they were dumped into a conveyor belt where they ran through and were spread out on a kind of a belt conveyor. From there, they went through a machine called a topper. And so keep in mind, I said these chickens were at least twice as big as what our chickens that are fed more of a natural diet are. But they don't want you to get a giant chicken breast because you'll think that's kind of weird, because chicken breasts that you see are more than normal size off of our 3 to 4 pound chicken. So they run these giant chicken breasts through a machine called a topper, and it takes kind of the top curve off the top of the breast. Then they went through a roller that rolled them out, so it's kind of flattened them out to the same shape or the same thickness as the chicken breast off of our more of a normal size chicken would be. So if you picture a cookie dough and a cookie and a rolling pin, that's basically what they're doing automatically. So then that chicken breast is now, 3 times the size of a regular chicken breast. They're running on a belt through a machine that used a laser water jet to cut out the shape of a chicken breast. Amazingly fast, insanely efficient. Like I said, literally think cookie cutter and cookie dough. I mean, that's what they're doing, using a laser water jet. The machine, as fast as these chicken breasts are running under it, the laser water jet was calculating how many breasts it could cut out of each flattened out breast. And usually it was around 2 to 3 breasts per breast, depending on the shape and how it got flattened. Then they're obviously separating the big pieces from the little pieces, and the trim or the edges are all what would be used for, pre-cooked pasta dishes or chicken salad, pre-cooked chicken salad type of dishes. All the breasts then all the pieces were separated. They went into a room where they were marinated. The guy giving me the tour literally told me, he said, I can pretty much make chicken cost whatever you need it to cost, because I can just make it absorb more water accordingly. So if you go to your local coffee shop and buy a pre-cooked chicken breast sandwich, and it says it's a 4-ounce chicken breast on the menu, they always weigh it pre-cooked. So nobody's really saying how much of that is water. It doesn't have to say that on the menu. So they, and obviously to a certain extent, I mean, those were his words. I'm not saying you could make it, 75% water, 25% chicken.
Chicken ice cube.
Yeah, but they did add just insane amount of marinade, basically product to the chicken breast. At that point, it looked almost like liquid, and they used a pump to transfer it to the next station. So it was pumped to the next station, which was the cooking station. So these chicken breasts have the nice grill marks on them, but they obviously weren't going to actually grill the chicken breast because all that moisture would come back out of them. So they ran through a steam cooker, where it's pressurized steam cooker, so that they can cook them without losing moisture or losing weight, essentially. So they go through the steam cooker, but they look like they're grilled, right? So they had a rolling wire basket with a flame shooting onto the basket, and as the chicken breast passed under the wire basket, burn char marks on them as they roll. So he said the cheapest way is if we just have crossways char marks on one side. If you want to pay a little bit more, we'll flip them over and run it on the other side. And then if you really want top notch, we'll crisscross it so it looks like the grill marks go both ways. So
You just got a new customer from all of this. Sign me up.
So from there, these chicken breasts were now fully cooked. Then they went out to an IQF tower. So they were using, I think, liquid nitrogen in an IQF tower to instantly freeze them. So they would blind through the tower and they'd come out frozen solid. They were putting them in bags right to go to the grocery store. And they were stamping right on the bag. I sat there and watched them do it. Use or freeze by such and such date. They were frozen solid right there in front of me, but they were putting use or freeze by. So that product then goes into freezer distribution system, whatever that involves. Eventually they make it to the grocery store where they pull them out of the freezer and put them in the refrigerated case. So when you walk up as a customer, they have thawed out there in the refrigerator case for the second time because they already were microwaved after showing up from North Carolina. So they go through, they thaw out again, but they say use or freeze by on the package. So as a customer, I feel like I would assume that the product was fresh and I was supposed to use it or freeze it by a certain date. If you take that home and you put it in your refrigerator for 2 weeks, and that hits the freeze by date, and you put it in your own home freezer, now you've just frozen it for the 3rd time. And then you let it in there until you get around to using it and pull it out, defrost, and cook it. The thing is it's not going to taste that bad because it's still going to have so much moisture in it. And I'm not saying any of this to make it out to be a terrible product. I mean, I don't think it's unsafe. It was a very clean, sanitary, safe facility. But I just think the alarming part of it to me was how little we know what's going on with the food. So I know that was longer and maybe long-winded, but sorry if I took too much time, but I just feel like there's those sorts of things that we really just don't know until we finally learn it, if that makes sense.
That was great. I'm so glad you shared that. And I have been converted, that's for sure. I mean, we try, like my family, we really do we try to do our best in like shopping from local farms, or like, you know, I feel like maybe there's a lack of, maybe don't have the best understanding of maybe a meat farm that we could buy locally. But now I'm like, I'm going to sign up for Source to Table. So you got me in. So I'm glad you shared that, because I think a lot of people don't know where their food comes. We talk about that a lot at our house, and just like the lack of knowledge. And I just learned something new tonight. So I'm really just, my mind is blown by that whole thing. I had no idea. It's going to make me think twice when I go to the grocery store.
Well, we're just about time. Last thoughts, Keith and Adi?
Oh, hey, I appreciate the opportunity for the dialogue. And Andrew, you had the idea to bring Louis John here, and great idea. I mean, super enriching experience. You know, Louis John, he's been in this business. He knows from multiple perspectives, not just our retail online perspective, but from a wholesale perspective as well as a grower and a processor. So I think it's great to be able to see the sides here. We're excited to be part of this, and to have the right partners to work with, and some customers who really hang there with us and give us the chance to build that relationship with them too. So.
I think this was a great opportunity to showcase to non-customers and our customers as well, more detail on exactly how we operate and what we do. And I think it was a good opportunity for people to meet Louis John, and I hope we could do something like this again, maybe with some other farmers and with other people. I think it would be great.
Yeah. But we need to get the kiddos on the call this next time.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
So this was super.
It sounds like they're headed to the dinner table, so I don't know if I can probably get them in here, but thanks for the opportunity to get on and share what we do and so on. But I'll see if they want to come say hi.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. And so this has been an extremely enlightening webinar, because, you know, hopefully if you're watching and the next time you go to the grocery store, you want to be thinking about, where does your food actually come from? Are those prices that you're paying, you know, really reflective of the quality of the food and the freshness of the food? All right, so we're back to Louis John.
Sounds like you've got a lot happening over there. I hope
it looks like it's hide and seek now.
I hope maybe Distillery Labs, maybe we can do a tour sometime over at Slagle Farms, come down to you and see how things go down there.
Hey Megan, Slagle Family Farm does do a farm tour dinner event in the summers. I think this summer was kind of a bust with COVID and quarantines, but they've got a commercial grade kitchen in a barn on the farm. Really gets you a chance to see how they operate, and typically they have a celebrity chef who comes and does the cooking for them. So it's really cool experience for people to get to know them.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun. We actually have our one and only for the year this Saturday. The rest of them had to get nixed, unfortunately.
You have no extra spots? I could just sneak in the back door.
I think there's a waiting list at the moment, but maybe next year.
So who you guys here tonight with you?
This is Branson. He's the oldest. So he's the number 2 farmer around here, right? Or he thinks number 1, maybe.
He's running the show. Thanks for
All right.
joining us.
All right, well,
Well,
thank
thanks for the
you.
evening. I've appreciated it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone, for
right.
the time today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
All right. Hey, thank you. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.